Hi, good afternoon. These video notes are on properties, the vocabulary that we're going to be using for this unit. This should be page 55 in our notebook. So the first word we're going to look at is the commutative property, which you guys have learned last year in 5th grade. And the commutative property just simply means to change the order. And this only works with addition and subtraction. So we're going to write a little note, only for addition and subtraction. So to show this on the example, 6 plus 8 can also be written as 8 plus 6. 9 times 3 can be written as 3 times 9. A plus B can be written as B plus A. And C times D can be rewritten as D times C. And they will all give you the same answers. So that is the commutative property. The next we're going to look at is associative property. So you associate with different groups. You're going to move the parentheses. For example, 4 plus 8 plus 2 plus 4, or sorry, 4 plus 8 plus 2, we can regroup it. Instead of being around the 4 and the 8, we could put it around the 8 and the 2. And the reason why we do associative property is because sometimes some numbers group better together. For example, 8 and 2 make 10, and 10 plus 4 is 14, and that's just kind of easier to do mentally. All right, this one, all multiplication, 7 times 6 times 5. We're going to regroup it and put the 6 and the 5 together because 6 times 5 is 30, and then 30 times 7 gives me 210. And that's a lot easier than doing 42 times 5. A plus B plus C, we're going to regroup it and do B plus C grouped together. And then E times F times G can be rewritten as E times F times G, where the F and G are now grouped together. And again, the reason for associative property is because you can group numbers that work better together. The next vocabulary word we're going to talk about is identity of addition and identity of multiplication. So that's what those two symbols stand for. So what can you add to make any number be itself? You can add 0. And then what can you multiply any number by to keep it as itself? You can multiply by 1. So you can think about identity as looking into the mirror. I want to keep myself to be the same thing. So for example, this would be the identity property of addition because 821 plus 0 is still 821. So I did not change the identity of 821. This 8 times 1 would be the identity property of multiplication because 18 times 1 is still 18. Negative A plus what gives me negative A? Well, you're just going to add 0. And then what times 1 gives me B? B times 1. So again, identity property, when dealing with addition, you just add 0. Identity property, when doing multiplication, you just multiply times 1. Inverse of addition and multiplication is when you are going to add the opposite to get 0. So we learned about opposites when we were in Unit 5 with integers. So 2 plus negative 2 is 0. 3 plus negative 3 is 0. And then what can you multiply to get 1? You can multiply any number by its reciprocal to get 1. And you guys have learned about reciprocals. It's where you take the numerator and the denominator and you just flip them around. All right, so let's go over here to our example. So 15 plus what gives me 0? Negative 15. So that is called the inverse of addition. 4 times 1/4, well, anything times its own reciprocal is 1. So that's inverse of multiplication. Or it's multiplicative inverse is kind of the fancier way to say it. B plus negative B, anything add to its opposite is 0. So that's that additive inverse. And then what times 3/8 gives me 1? Well, just multiply times the reciprocal, which is 8/3, and that gives you 1. So there's that multiplicative inverse, okay, or multiplying by the reciprocal. All right, your 0 property is any number that's multiplied by 0 is equal to 0. And I think that's something you learned back probably elementary school, like 2nd, 3rd grade. If we look over here, 0 times 1/4, 0. 190 times what is 0? 0. 0 times k, still 0. And then what times negative g is 0? Still 0. So that is your 0 property. Anything times 0 is 0. And then the last property we're going to look at is your distributed property. Distributed property, distribute just means to give out. To distribute. So the outside number gets distributed, which multiplied, to each number on the inside of the parentheses. So each term on the inside. So if we look over here, what this is saying is 6 times 30 plus 6 times 5. This is saying 8 times 20, because you want 8 groups of 20, minus 8 groups of 1. This expression is saying x times y, which is just xy, and then x times z. This last one is saying 12a times 6. So 12a times 6 plus 12a times 7. And we'll learn later in this unit how to actually simplify those. So there's your distributed property. Then we've got some examples over here that we're going to try out. So the first one, we're going to name the property. So this looks like we're changing the order. So which property allows you to change the order? The commutative property. And if you don't know how to spell it, it is on your foldable, so just look at that. Right here, I'm multiplying by the reciprocal. So which property says we can multiply by the reciprocal? It's inverse of multiplication. This lets us to regroup. So which one allows us to regroup? The associative property. This looks like we are distributing the 8 onto the 5j and the 2k. So that's distributive property. Multiplying times 0, that's your 0 property. And then anything plus 0, so I will tell you, number 5 and 6, a lot of kids get these confused. They think both of these are 0 property. They are not. 0 property is when you multiply by 0. When you add 0, you're getting yourself, which means this is the identity property. So that's how those two are different. So you have to make sure not to get those two confused. All right, so after we're done with that, what you're going to do is you're going to turn the page and go to page 56. Now, in class, we already completed the front of the expressions vocabulary. So what you're going to do next is you're going to do the practice properties right here. So go ahead and pause your video, and then I will put the answers up in just a minute. All right, here are the answers. So go ahead and check yours with mine. And if you have any questions, just put them at the bottom of the video. If you disagree with anything, just let me know and we can discuss it either in the comments below or in class tomorrow. All right, I hope you have a great afternoon, and I will see you guys later.
Subscribe.